Just a little bit about Germantown Municipal School District. We are one of the suburb school districts right outside of Memphis. We are a small school district. We have a total of 6 schools in our district. We have a little bit something for everyone. We have traditional K through 5 elementary schools called Farmington, Dogwood, and Forest Hill Elementary School, which is one of our brand new elementary schools. It was just established in 2019. We also have a K through 8 school called Riverdale Elementary School, a traditional middle school called Houston Middle School, and then everyone feeds up to our flagship high school called Houston High School. And we have a total of 15 counselors in our district at every grade level too. So if you are interested in working with our elementary students, we have counselors in all of our elementary schools, as well as our middle school counselors, and then our high school counselors are kind of divided up. We have academic counselors, we have college and career counselors, or a college and career counselor. And then we also have an intervention counselor. So depending upon your interests of maybe where you want to see yourself, we have something for everyone, we say, as far as your internship or maybe a professional opportunity as you're beginning your counseling career. Our counselors in GMSD, our elementary and middle school counselors are 10-month employees, and then our high school counselors are 10.5-month employees as well. And I would love to invite you all, if you want to learn a little bit more about GMSD and our schools, we are having a virtual, our version of a career fair. It's called our virtual school snapshot event. And it's the week of March 1st through the 4th. And you'll have an opportunity from the safety and comfort of your home to explore each one of our schools. And you'll get an opportunity to meet the administrators and the staff that works at the schools. They're super creative with technology this year. And so they've got some fun activities for you to do where you get to interact with the staff. And it's going to be just a really great night. And there'll be multiple nights too. So it's try to fit into your schedule based upon the schools that you might be interested in learning more about. And we hope that that might give you a feel for whether or not you'd like to apply to GMSD in the future. So I don't know if we can send some information to you guys, but we've got a little flyer that gives you some additional information on our school snapshot event. Or if you just head to our GMSD main webpage, you can find it under our HR website, and there's all kinds of information for you to sign up. But I really feel like if you want a true idea of what it is like to be a counselor in GMSD, you need to hear from an actual counselor. And that's why we asked Carla Christian to come speak to you today, because we want her to give you the real talk. And so we thought that we would let Carla talk to you about kind of like a day in the life of what a counselor is at Houston Middle School. So I'm going to turn it over to Carla, and she can kind of give you an idea and maybe a picture of what it would be like to work for GMSD. And as well as if you're not to the graduation point yet, but you're thinking about where you want to do your internship, we'd love for you to consider GMSD as well. All right, Carla, I'm going to turn it over to you.
It's great to be with you guys. Can everyone hear me okay? I just want to make sure that, because I've had some issues with my internet lately. I'm really excited because I actually have an intern from U of M this semester. And she's actually a former student at HMS, so that's been really neat. But the way we run our program, we follow the ASCA national model. We have a comprehensive school counseling program. And we also, of course, follow the Tennessee school counseling model. We are the only middle school in Tennessee that has the RAMP certification. And I am a RAMP reviewer, so I've just finished this cycle up for this year. Every time I do that, I learn a whole lot. But today, for instance, in our school, we have new students come in just randomly, probably every other week or so. So anytime a new student comes in, I do not do scheduling, but I do take the student myself or my co-counselor. We take them to their homeroom. We introduce them to all their teachers, take them around the school because it's the first time they've ever been in the building. So introducing new students to their teachers and helping them acclimate to their schedule is a thing that we do. My intern, I had a half day off today, so my intern actually went and checked in on the student. We do multiple check-ins a day to just make sure that they're okay, that they know how to get to the car line and or the bus or whatever. I was saying that I've had a new student today, a check-in and check-out with a student I do every day, mornings and afternoons. So new students, check-in and check-out with a student with a behavior concern. We're tracking, doing zones of regulation with that student. We also have classroom lessons this week and small groups that we're starting. We have academic small groups that we're working with students who are failing their classes. Phone calls already today, multiple types of phone calls and emails, mainly from parents. And just a lot of concerns with COVID, with virtual learning, with hybrid, because we have in-person students that are there 5 days a week. We have 7th and 8th graders that are there 4 days a week. And then we have virtual students who are at home learning. And so I'll stop talking. If y'all have a question, I'd be glad to answer.
I have a question about what types of things are you doing with the students who are failing classes? And you said you had small groups for those. What is going on in those small groups?
So in the past, several different interventions we've tried. I've Zoomed with students with their parent in the room to kind of walk them through. We use Schoology as our platform to access their academic material. And so we have Zoomed with students, walked them through Schoology, shared screens, and tried to help them acclimate to the platform. Also, I've created a document that I use with students to help them. It's a week at a glance to help them track their assignments, walk them through how to find their assignments, those kinds of things. The students that I'm actually meeting with, because of social distancing, it's going to be 2 kids at a time because we're very limited in our space in our building. So we're going to be meeting in the conference area. My intern is actually going to be helping me facilitate this group, which is awesome. And we are going to address the organization part, like developing a calendar, something that works for them, whether it's digital, hard copy, agenda book, just helping them to understand how to manage their time studying and organize their tasks. We're also going to talk about study skills, test taking skills, communication with teachers, how to form an email to ask for help, all of those things, because they can communicate in multiple ways. The students that we're targeted are
Your audio cut out again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in the best place in my house for Wi-Fi, so I'm not sure what else to do. Anyway, we're doing a lot with helping the student manage their own learning. That is the goal. We are going to be doing a self-check with the students so that they can do a self-assessment for their study skills. And then we are going to use the ASCA mindsets and behaviors as perception data. And then we have outcome data, which we'll look at as their grades and some academic goals that we have for our program.
Thank you.
Do you have a classroom version of your small group lessons, like some of those things that you mentioned, like communication skills, organization skills, test taking skills, all of those kinds of things? Do you cover that in classroom lessons?
In some of our lessons we do. So like in this past semester, I just did a goal setting lesson with 7th grade. sixth grade, we're doing organization. We just finished our organizational lesson. I do meet with students individually, and some of these tasks we also cover with individual sessions, just because we've been limited in our space at school. We just can't, we don't have a really good place to do small groups. So I just kind of went out on a limb and asked to see, could we use the conference room and just use minimal, a minimal space for students, because we literally have no place to go. And we don't want to have kids in our office for that long of a period of time.
And Ms.
So we
Christian,
do cover this academic.
You're doing that small groups now because of COVID, but a normal year you would do that whole class, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said you're meeting the small groups and doing individually because of COVID, but in a normal year you would do that in a whole class setting. Is that correct?
Sorry. I'm gonna see if this one works.
Pods.
It's okay. I think it, Diana, I think that in a normal year we do that in whole class setting as well. So to answer your question, I think.
Like classroom guidance, right? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
They're a part of the MAPS rotation sometimes, I believe.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, do you go over all of that in those big group settings, like the classroom content, and then like identify certain students, and then that's how you come up with a small group, or that kind of thing, I guess.
Diana, I apologize. What was your last question?
So you cover these topics in larger classroom lessons. I don't know if you do that on Zoom or not, but then I guess identify specific students for small groups and individual work, or, I mean, what is that looking like right now?
I think we lost Carla.
That's okay.
I bet there she is. She's popping back on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Diana, what was your last question?
Okay, so I was wondering if you do like large classroom guidance lessons, like virtually, or what that looks like to provide support for more students rather than doing them one or two at a time, and then like pull out students identified for a group. You said that they were failing, so I guess they need more support, or what's your process looking like right now with doing so many different types of students, hybrid and virtual and everything?
So we are in the classrooms once a month. A lot of our elementary counselors are in there more often, but we're in there once a month. We are in person. So we are in the teacher's classroom because we don't have our own classroom. We're in there with the teachers and students. The students who go to the overflow space are on Zoom, and then the students who are at home learning are on Zoom. So we Zoom with those students and we teach in person. So all the students get the lesson that we're doing in a large group setting. And then we look at data. We've been kind of tracking the students that were struggling, like the first interim, the first quarter grades. All of those are students we kind of touch on individually to do some interventions with them. Some we've Zoomed with if they were virtual. And then now that we're past the semester, we're looking at those who struggled the first 9 weeks. So those are the ones who we are targeting, who are failing multiple classes. Those are the ones we're targeting for the small groups. And because of space, it's just going to be, a few students at a time. So we're trying to do intensive groups where we actually are going to do 3 sessions with them this week, and then maybe 2 sessions next week, just because of the time frame that we have, plus with in-class lessons. Does that answer your question?
What time during the school day do you usually go in for lessons or pull them out for groups? Do you do it during lunch or during instruction time?
Okay, so for our 7th and 8th graders, they have an elective class, STEM, a foreign language, or current events. And so during those classes is when we are in the class once a month with 7th and 8th grade. The teachers, and we schedule with the teachers the best time for them. And the teachers are really generous to give us the class period once a month. And those are not the core curriculum. With 6th grade, we only have 2 counselors at our school. So we have 6th grade as well. So with 6th grade, we actually go into a core content classroom one time a semester. So the teachers actually give up one time a semester for instruction. So each month we rotate it from one core curriculum to another. So like last month we were in with ELA, this month we're in with math. So each time, one time a semester, they give up one instructional day. And the 6th grade teachers are very flexible and fine with that. And then for small groups, we pull them during what we call MAPS classes, which is music or art and PE.
I wanted to just say a couple of things to everybody today. First of all, thank you for being here. A number of our school students are in a class right now. And so one of the things, and maybe it was announced at the beginning, I didn't quite hear everything at the very beginning, but we are recording so that students, because I've gotten a number of students saying, can you please, will there be a recording so I can listen to some of the schools? And so we are recording. But I know one of the things, we had a list of questions that the students were curious about. And so I guess one of the questions that I received from a school student was, how is it going with, dealing with a pandemic and the children, and how's everybody coping with that in the schools?
I would say for myself, I think that the kids are very resilient. They're doing really well. There are some students who are struggling a lot with anxiety, which is something we deal with every year in middle school, whether a pandemic or not. They're anxious students. I do think the virtual learning for some is a challenge, although others are doing very well with it. And I have seen more students with mental health conditions. So I do think the pandemic is affecting people's mental health, just like it is adults. So we have spent a lot of time just talking about mindfulness and working with individual students who's just as a support at school, because we're not therapists, we're support people there. And then a lot of our students are seeing outside therapists for their, concerns, but we're working alongside their therapist to make sure that school is a supportive place for them. And so that's part of the collaboration is with the admin, their teachers, outside agencies, and things like that to make sure that they have the supports that they need at school.
Thank you.
So due to the time restraint, we're going to hold the remaining questions. If you guys have any remaining questions, we'll hold that until the Q&A portion. But up next, we have University Middle.
All right, good afternoon again, everyone. As I mentioned before, my name is Ashley Bowles, and I'm the coordinator of student development and school counselor at University Middle School. This is currently our second year at University Middle, so we only have 6th and 7th grade right now. Right now, we have approximately 150 students at full capacity. We will have about 250 students, which will keep me within the ASCA guidelines of 250 to 1. But once we add on to the high school, we will have to add at least one more, if not 2 counselors, once we reach our max of 500 students there. Our elementary school currently has 400 students that from kindergarten to 5th grade. At University Middle, we are currently hybrid, or we will be hybrid. Right now, our students are virtual, but starting next week, they will be in the building, or those that opt to be in the building will be in the building. So we'll have some on campus and some virtual, similar to the other schools. For me, I am over several different things, one of them being the 504 plans. So that is definitely something that it is helpful to be knowledgeable in, because a lot of school counselors are the ones that are managing the 504 caseload. I create a homeroom curriculum that we use each week. And to encourage the use of SEL within the classroom, we have the teachers actually doing that. I do push into homerooms, but the teachers are the ones predominantly doing the homeroom curriculum, which includes time management, organization, different SEL topics, goal setting, and things of that nature. Being that we are not a Shelby County school, but we're also not a school, we have the unique opportunity to create the comprehensive school counseling program here at University Middle. And being that we are just in our second year, that is a process that is ongoing and consistently changing. Our students are, their parents can work at the University of Middle. Can work at the University of Memphis. They can also be students at the University of Memphis. Then we have a 2-mile radius, and then lottery picks as well. So we have a robust amount of students that come to our school. Let's see what else I wrote down. We do have some grade repair groups for those students who demonstrated any difficulties throughout the first and second quarter, to work on those things such as time management, organization, completing tasks, asking for help, because that is something that myself as an adult struggles with, and definitely that students struggle with, as something that's embarrassing to think that you may be the only one that needs help. So we focus on that. Parent phone calls, working with the staff to communicate with their parents if there's any issues, whether it be academic or behavioral. If they're having difficulty contacting the parent, which we do at sometimes, some parents are working during the school hours, so they may have that difficulty. Let's see, we are currently also doing some career exploration, and we're just continuing to grow and transform once we learn more about what our students need. It's been interesting to create this program, having came from a school system, to creating my own school counseling program is difficult, but exciting at the same time. So any additional input from students that may be interns would definitely be helpful to create our program to be as robust as possible.
Ashley, I'd like to ask a question if it's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you do your small groups with you being virtual?
So all of our small groups are online we use Google Classroom as our platform. So all of our small groups are currently online. So we use the Google Classroom platform to push out any activities that we may want the students to complete prior to or during the group session. And we all meet there collectively. We have, I think, a maximum of 8 students in each group to allow us to work with each student as necessary.
That's awesome.
One question that I have from some students, what are your hours? So what would be in the day in the life as an intern?
Okay, our hours at University Middle are, the staff starts working at 7:30 and our workday ends at 8:30. At 3:30. But our students' day does not start until 8 o'clock, and they finish their last class at 2:30. And then they also have significant amount of time for their lunch.
We are an 8 to 3 school.
One other question that I have was, what would be your best advice for a postgraduate student that is looking for placement at your facility?
I would say definitely be open to learning new roles. Though the program, the University of Memphis, is wide reaching, there are certain aspects of most school counseling programs that you don't necessarily get a feel for while you are in the building, such as 504s, communication with parents. So being sure that you're able to communicate well, knowledgeable of the different state laws, specifically with regards to 504s, because that is definite. Those interventions are necessary and legally have to be provided for those students that need them. So being sure that you're knowledgeable of those things, and just being open and willing to try new things, because you have to adjust to what the student needs are.
I definitely agree with Ashley on being open to new roles and just being flexible. I think flexibility is key as a school counselor. You have to be flexible because every day is different. Even the greatest plan that you have is going to be interrupted by something. I would also say, as a former special education teacher, that you're very knowledgeable about special ed, because you will be in contact a lot with students with disabilities. And some, actually, for our specific goals that we have, we are targeting some of our subgroups, which are students with disabilities is one. So knowing the law, understanding IEPs, making sure you read their files, just like you read their 504 plans. That's really important, that you're knowledgeable about special ed and the accommodations that each student has. I would also say that just be willing to offer help to your admin. You know, I think in a pandemic especially, I'm a helper, and so I'm willing to do, if I needed to go clean the bathroom, I mean, because, you know, that's just I'm old school, and if I needed to go do something for my principal, I would, if they asked me, I would do it. I had a principal one time that was not afraid to go cut the grass at the school. So I respected that, or clean the building, you know, whatever it was that needed to be done. And so I feel like just being willing to be a helper. I know that we all have our roles, and obviously we have specific duties that are based on ASCA and on our state model that are non-counseling duties. But even like in a pandemic, in a situation where there's need, you have to be willing to do that. So for instance, one thing that I do every day is contact tracing on a bus. I get up to get to school early. At 7:40, I go out to my bus. It's been really great because I've gotten to know this whole group of kids that I would not have gotten to know so intimately. You know, I do that every day, the same bus, morning and afternoon, to do contact tracing for how they're seated. I've normally not ever had to do anything with a bus, but because I was asked by my administrator, I've enjoyed it. Does it make my schedule a little difficult? Yes, it does, because it's at the beginning of.
I do want to just provide some maybe insight from a professional kind of HR standpoint. One of the amazing things about the Memphis community is it is a counselor's market. You have a number of public schools just in the Memphis area, not to mention private schools and charter schools, and there are lots of opportunities for counseling positions. Every school district is looking for counselors. So it's really important for you to do your research and see about those districts that, what they have to offer, not only as far as benefits, but maybe just supports that you might need as as you're starting your, and maybe step outside of your comfort zone and, attend their career fairs that they might have, or their events to get to know the schools and the staff, because, it's going to be one of the most important professional decisions that you make, where you want to apply and that first position that you accept. And so, you want to go to a school where you're going to feel supported and you're going to feel valued, and a little bit of extra research, on the front end can help you with that first year, and setting you up with a district or a school, or a place that that can really start you off on the right foot.
Thank you all so much for that input. We're going to move along, and I will be asking some additional questions as we progress throughout this. So up next, we have the Academic Counseling Center.
So again, my name is Brittany Foster. I actually worked in a K-8 school a few years ago for a few years, and just recently moved to the University of Memphis this summer. But I did one of my internships in the Academic Counseling Center. So that's kind of how I was aware of it and really got interested in more of this like advising role. So we're kind of looking for interns specifically for the summer because we do have new student orientation going on. I believe this would count as like a high school placement. That's what it did, at least for me, because you will be working with recent high school graduates. So we work with pretty much all incoming freshmen, except for maybe some like engineering, some fine arts, and maybe some business students. But we work with them, kind of helping them pick out their classes, end up registering them for classes for their first semester. It's just been like a really interesting time, especially during with COVID right now, because everything is remote, but we really love to be kind of have a relationship with the students, kind of be just that first face that they kind of get to see on campus. So they can have that relationship with somebody. They can reach out, they email us for questions all the time that we may not be able to answer, but we always try to point them into the right direction. So I actually feel like I learned a lot in the Academic Counseling Center, especially from a school counseling standpoint, because when I was in the classrooms teaching about college and careers, I worked with 8th graders, but we still taught about that with all grade levels. So it was really cool to have that experience of working at a university for a summer and kind of getting to share with them my experience and what that looks like, and things that are important to already start being ready for when you're applying to colleges and learning about different schools. So the advising role is probably not one that is always thought of when it comes to school counseling, but it's definitely been a different one. It's really fun. And especially over the summer, there's a lot of excitement with like new student orientation going on. We are hoping to be in person for new student orientation. I'm sure things could change. I have no idea. At this point, that is our hope, that we will be in person. We have been going in, I go in like one day a week right now at this point. So hopefully this summer it'll be a little more full time. I'm definitely ready to not be working from my bedroom. So I'm really excited that we can hopefully be doing that this summer. Typically our interns, there would be starting off, I have a document too that I can email out, and I can put my email in the chat if y'all have any other questions, but it's typically starting off kind of like observing our advisors, sitting in with them during the sessions, and then end up doing some co-advising with the advisor, and then end up by the end of the summer kind of doing your own, with, of course, having an advisor kind of like helping you or sitting there watching you, because it can get a little confusing with all the different classes that are offered. Helping out a lot with that. Answering phones is always very interesting because you get a lot of fun questions and you learn a lot about a university when you're answering the phones from people. And then a big part of our office is our Tiger Learning Communities, which is like a group of classes. So we'll offer maybe like history, English, and ACAT 1100, which is like our Intro to University of Memphis class. And all those students are in the same 3 classes. You'll have like 25 students in each of those classes. So as an intern, you'll kind of help pick out those classes with students, talk with them through that, help them advise for those kind of things. So yeah, our hope again is to be in person. So if you're looking for an internship that's in person, hopefully that'll work out. And I know at least when I was a student, it was kind of difficult to find a summer internship with a school just because schools typically aren't in session during the summers. So if you're really interested in working over the summer, I really loved it just to kind of get that knocked out. Having that semester over the summer was great to have that extra time and work on that. So definitely we're looking for summer interns. So if that's something you're interested in, we would love to have you.
Now I'll just open the floor for any questions for any of the sites that were able to express their, to tell us basically what their site was offering. Okay, so one of the questions I've had was, what are are there any opportunities for anyone to be able to be hired as a permanent staff member after their internship or practicum? And this is a question for everyone, if anyone wants to add in.
I know University Middle is going to possibly be looking for at least a half-time counselor in the fall. But of course, once we start the high school in 2022, we will be looking for additional counselors then as well.
So right now, GMSD is, we are talking to our employees to see what their intentions are for the 2021-2022 school year. So they are really seriously thinking about if they are going to continue on with our district, if they're going to retire or transition out. So we should have a better idea of our counseling staffing needs, I would say probably within the next month or so. And then what we do is we post our available positions on our frontline online applicant employment site. It's our job board. And you can access that site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And once we get an applicant pool together, then the principals at the school, we feel very strongly that the principals of the schools make the hiring recommendation, and then they turn that over to HR. And so, we do the majority of our hiring for the upcoming school year towards the end of May in the summer months. And that's another, just a little piece of advice. Don't get discouraged if you do not have a job lined up by the end of May. We hire in all of the districts, in this area, hire continuously throughout the summer. And we just actually hired a counselor. She came and did her paperwork today. So she's starting next week. So even all throughout the school year, we're looking for counselors as well. So, perseverance is the key, staying on top of the websites where the districts or the schools or the departments that you're interested in working for, keeping up with those sites and checking in on a regular basis are really great things to do as you begin searching for your next professional home.
I think that one of the things that Carla mentioned, about pitching in, when you mentioned principals, Alyssa, that an internship or a practicum experience is like a job interview, and you never know who you're going to encounter or who might, like a principal, for example, like you said, and for them to see your work or know that you're pitching in and volunteering. And so I always just encourage students to remember that it's like a semester-long job interview, and maybe not for that, like you said, maybe not for that next semester, but it could be in the future. And I think our community is it's a small world, period. And so to keep those networks going and to try to be the, person that pitches in and volunteers is really important.
I'd like to say one other thing. I think it's really important. You are going to come away from your program so knowledgeable and prepared, but ongoing learning is very, very important. So keeping up with your professional development, being very proactive with that, because every school setting is different and you might encounter things at your school that you're not prepared for. Professional development through professional organizations as well.
And I'll also add that while we are mainly focusing on the students, it's also important that we are, to a certain extent, the first line for staff as well. So be willing to help your staff, the additional staff, in any way that you can, whether it's recognizing that their mental health may need some assistance, or whether there is anything else that you can do for them in their work with the students.
Another question that we have was, this past year, everything has been virtual and everybody's been adjusting to that. So with that being said, what have you and your staff done to be able to reach out to those students, and how are you accommodating for the simple fact that things are virtual right now?
I think the biggest thing is extending grace to yourself, to your staff, to your students, to the families, recognizing that this is a difficult situation for everyone, and knowing that for some of the students specifically, they may be trying to attend school virtually as well as take care of younger siblings. So just being willing to recognize that there are outside things that are interfering with their ability to do well in school. So extending grace would be one thing, because attempting to reach out to students outside of school hours can be difficult. So just, I know sometimes I may pop into a classroom and drop a link into the chat and say, can this student meet me here? And just do a quick check-in if we're having any concerns about a student. And sometimes we just randomly pick students just to, check in and see how they're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything negative going on, just to check in to see how they're doing.
I think at the university level, I know it's been hard for everybody, but it's also been hard for these incoming freshman students that don't really get to have like a real college experience. And so I think the university as a whole has definitely been trying to reach out to students, kind of still do some type of virtual activities that they feel like it's a little bit like a similar college experience. But I think as at the advisor level for us, we are doing everything through Zoom. We're trying to do like a Zoom call instead of a phone call, just so we can see each other's faces, talk, act like it's a normal conversation, like we would be just if they were in our offices. So trying to do that, and then just also trying to just check in with students. Some students may mention like, hey, this is really hitting me hard, and just trying to be a person to just like, hey, how are you doing? Thinking about you. Hope everything's okay. Can I help you with anything? So just trying to reach out to the students in different ways to kind of let them know that someone does care and someone is here to help if they do need any extra help with anything.
One thing is also making phone calls to parents and just asking, what can I do to support you? Because I know a lot of parents are working at home while their child is virtual, because we do have a percentage of students who are virtual and their parents are working their phone calls. Parents love to hear your voice. So not just through email.
One more question that I do have is, how would you best schedule working as an intern, with considering that an individual could have a full-time job as a full-time teacher possibly somewhere else? Like, how would you work with that student to get those hours in?
I think being virtual is a benefit for that, because you're able to record lessons and things of that nature that can be used with the students. So being virtual does extend to that possibility, especially with regards to having hours that don't necessarily mix well with the school. So I would say, providing the ability for them to create curriculum or activities that they can utilize through a recording, or that students can return to at any time. Specifically, if you want to do something with a peace place, you can have somebody record something with regards to progressive muscle relaxation or something of that nature, so that the students can use it on a continual basis. So being virtual, I think, has helped us to a certain extent, recognizing that there is so much more that we can do, even outside of being in person with the students.
I also think, that would be a great conversation point as we're being intentional with placing the intern in one of our schools. And so our schools have different start times and different end times. So we can look to see if any of our schools' schedules complement the intern's second job or first job, I guess. That would be a way that we could help assist potentially in allowing them to continue to do their internship in GMSD.
Now I will open the floor if anybody has any other questions.
I saw that y'all had put your email addresses and things into the chat. Thank you so much for that. So I was wondering if, we think of something later, if that would be okay to message y'all and kind of talk to you on an individual basis. I feel like that goes without saying, but I just want to double check.
I have one more question that is on the list. So due to things being virtual and everything, one person asked, with the summer availability, so summer internship, is that an option to flow into an internship possibly due to some places having summer school? Is that an option?
We do not have summer school per se, so that would not necessarily be an option because there would not be students available for those direct hours.
So at this time, GMSD isn't having maybe a traditional summer school. Now we are looking at new legislation that was just passed with learning camps and bridge all sessions, but I'm not quite sure how our counselors would fit into those types of mini sessions. But I feel like everything is on the table right now. So check back with us. Just like I feel like things change at a moment's notice with COVID. They've been changing, all year like that. Whereas in the past, I would say, there's not that traditional opportunity in the summer. Maybe in the future, as these learning camps and bridge sessions and tutoring are going to be in the summer, I definitely see that or foresee that there could be a need for counselors, although there's nothing definite just yet.
Traditionally, there have been, through Shelby County Schools, there have been credit replacement programs that counseling students have gotten hours through, or like when Brittany was talking about the Academic Counseling Center, students have done that. But you're right, yeah, it's the same pretty much when you're speaking of Bartlett, Lakeland, all the other munis as well, that they do not have a traditional high school experience or school experience for the other levels as well. So yeah, we do the best we can, but there are not a lot of options. That's why a lot of the students do high school in the summer. And I do want to say, and I appreciate everybody giving their emails and being open to questions. I just want to remind the students that for applications, that the students do not contact schools directly, and they do not contact counselors or principals directly, and that we have to go through our application procedures. And as Mrs. Patterson or Mrs. Richardson was noted, that for Shelby County schools, you go through Ayanna Perkins, but by way of me. So it's like you go to me and then I go to Ayanna and Ayanna goes to Shelby County schools. So yeah, just want to remind everybody of that. I know everybody knows it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cogdell, for that input as well.
I have a quick question. So I'm actually doing my internship in Mississippi, and I did my practicum in Collierville. So it's really interesting to see the differences between the two and the different school needs between, each school. Um, but something I'm noticing here, I'm at a middle school here around Jackson, and something I'm noticing is that students that are virtual, their grades are at an all-time low compared to the students that are attending. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, attending in person. So just a question for Germantown and University. Are y'all experiencing the same thing? And how are you kind of reaching out to those students? Because I know that I want it makes me upset because I really want every student to be successful, and help them to do that. But it's really hard, especially when there's two school counselors and an intern trying their very best for 700 something students. So just wanted y'all to speak on that in different ways that you're accommodating or trying to accommodate students that are just not turning anything in for the reason of so many different reasons, but kind of taking that into consideration.
We are definitely seeing a decline in some of the grades for some of our students. And to the best of our ability, the teachers are definitely the front line with respect to that. But once the teachers recognize that what they're trying to do, their outreach is ineffective, they will then reach out to us. So I'm just trying to, I usually send out a check-in email with the students, just want to check in with you, see how you're doing, just want to chat, just try to make it as informal as possible. Some students are receptive to meeting with me and some are not, but and that goes the same whether we're virtual or in person. All students are not going to be receptive to meeting with the school counselor for one reason or another. So we try to reach out to those students. And for those who are receptive to the assistance, just trying to get an understanding of what we can do best to help them. So asking them specifically what they need to be successful, because it may not necessarily be something about the work. It may be something with regards to their home environment. So it's finding their exact needs and working from there.
I'll chime in for Germantown. When we started this year out at the beginning of the year, we did put a survey out and gave parents a choice whether to be virtual or in school. And then we really looked at our space and tried to make it work for the elementary, for K through 6, actually in person, the best we can. And Ms. Christian alluded earlier to pull-out, or I forgot what you call it, pull-out groups, where to get everybody in there, we might have to have some of the kids in the classroom go to another room. It's like an overflow room, and they'll be zooming in, but we had to make them fit. And our parents are good at telling us when they're not happy. So I think halfway through the first semester we end up pulling in the 7th and 8th graders too, because those are crucial years and hard to be at home, because a lot of them were home on their own. My kids were, for example, and that's hard for a 7th and 8th grader to have that discipline to do their work. And so we did everything we could to get the kids that wanted to be in, or the parents, that wanted to get their kids in school, to be in school. And then we did have another survey or option at the beginning of this semester that says you can reevaluate your situation. If your kids weren't doing well in one environment or the other, they can move to the other. So we allowed them to switch in January if they wanted to. And we had some switch from virtual to in-person, some go from in-person to virtual. It went both ways. And then also, even when we were doing the hybrid schedule for the middle school at the beginning, some students that were on IEPs, they were there 4 days a week or 5 days a week actually from the beginning. And so there was many varieties to offer support, but in the end, some people have said it, some students just don't do well in certain environments and some do. And it really depends on the student. And sometimes you don't know until you get there. So we've done what we could. No, there's probably no great way to answer that. There's no perfect answer, but we do what we can.
I will say that one thing that we did, can you hear me? We created a virtual student referral form, a Google Doc, and all the teachers had access to that document or that link. And so they would refer a student to us through filling out that form. And then they would give us a background of what's happening, what they've done, when they've, when they've called the parent, and then all the things that they've done. And then kind of like we're a tiered intervention to help that student. So that's one of the things that we've done for both in-person and virtual students. So anytime a student was referred, then we would get a notification that someone has filled out that form. And then we as counselors follow up with the student, contact parents, collaborate with the teacher, and just try to find different ways to support that student.
I'm actually learning so much about the creativity behind school counseling and just the many different pieces. So that was great to hear from y'all. Thank you for answering that.
At this time, we're waiting for Bartlett to come in. So if you guys have any other questions, this is your time to go ahead and ask those questions.
I'll throw a question out there. I guess it would be for everyone, but in your areas, how many students are coming to you who you're referring out to other healthcare providers, like mental health care providers? And like, are they available for the myriad of students that are needing those, whether or not they can pay or not? Like, are you able to find, places to refer them to?
For University Middle, we do partner with Shelby County Schools for their school social worker. And so the school social worker is available to meet with any of our students that need more in-depth counseling or work. And for those parents who would prefer to not use someone within the school system, we do provide them with different options within the community.
We also have a district social worker who is a licensed therapist. And for some of our students, she is the person that we refer out to because of needs, whether it's financial or insurance situations or whatever. We also have a parent resource opportunity. It's called a Pro Packet that has all of the mental health facilities in our area, the contact information, how the mobile crisis, all of those things are in there. And then we also provide a community resource list at their request.
So I just thought of another question that you guys could possibly answer for me. So could you tell me like what different therapeutic modalities or training that you guys use in most counseling sessions?
For us, we're educational school counselors, so brief solution focused counseling is what we use.
Similar to Ms. Carla, a lot of brief solution focus, but also try to throw in some reality therapy or choice theory, as well as some cognitive behavioral theory as well, things that they can grasp with regards to their thoughts and how they're linked to their actions.
I have a question about how you're supporting students in crisis when they're not in person. So how do you support them virtually and making it safe for them?
When we've had referrals for, like we have anonymous alerts, we have different ways for students to anonymously report, or someone, if they have a student in crisis, we reach out to parents immediately. And we have resources that we provide for them. We do not do like suicide threat assessments or anything like that virtually. That would be a referral to an outside agency.
We have not had too many crisis situations with respect to immediate crises. Our recourse is often either calling 911 or just so that they can receive the immediate assistance that they may need if the student is harming themselves or or threatening to harm themselves. But we can also provide families with information for sites such as Compass if need be, if they need to admit a student.
And the pro packet that I mentioned earlier, that's when we also reach out to the parents and provide them with all of those resources.
In the small groups, has there been any problems with students like really having a reaction like to the pandemic or workload or something like that?
And the small groups that I've been working through this fall and into this semester have been academic focused groups. Most of the time, if we have a student that's struggling with anxiety, especially with fear about the pandemic, which we have, that's done individually. And a lot of times if we see a student on an ongoing basis and we feel like there needs to be some type of intervention with them, then that's, when we give the parent the resources, just because sometimes what we do in our school is we're there in the building with them, but a lot of their fears and thoughts are outside of school, like they can't go to sleep or they're struggling with doing their homework or things like that. So that's when we to get to a point where we just say, we think they need a higher level of intervention besides what we can do for them in the school building.
We have not had any students that have expressed those concerns during group settings, but similar to Ms. Carla, if it's expressed on a one-on-one basis, we do try to provide the family with the necessary resources. And I do thank you all for having me. I do have to jump to another meeting, but I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Yes. So if you guys don't have any further questions, this is recorded. So we will post this on our website once everything has been updated and edited and everything of that nature. But this is time for you guys to ask your final questions and make your final statements. And thank you guys again so much for taking out your time to come and do this for us.
Sounds like they answered everything, right?
Yes. Well, that wraps up our practicum and internship fair. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Just share a little bit about my district. We are Bartlett City Schools. We have 11 schools, two are high school campuses. One is a 9th grade academy. The other one is the 10-12. We have 3 middle schools and we have 6 elementary schools. So we have a total of 20 counselors. We have 2 social workers, and we are always, how do I say, marketing for additional funding for additional mental health and school counseling staff. So community is very supportive. We have our counseling team is exceptional. They work well vertically and horizontally across the grade spans, and it's just we've been as a system been in place since 2014. We were one of the municipalities, and 2 years commercial appeals. 1 year we were the best place to work in Shelby County, and the next year we were second place displaced by St. Jude, which is, if you're going to be replaced by anybody, St. Jude is a great one to do that. So a lot of seems to be employee satisfaction there, and in terms of support for school counselors, that's my role. I'm the district counseling and intervention supervisor. So I try to be really aggressive in terms of professional development, in terms of getting you integrated into your school, providing resources, just not leaving you hanging out there to try and figure it out. I'm very accessible and uh, go really go a long way to try and develop those relationships in the counseling community as well. So there's that support system, just every which way you turn. And again, just great schools, not a lot of turnover. We really rarely have an opening, but from time to time we do. And I am always pitching for additional help. So keep your eyes open and follow our, check in on our career page and see what's out there. Check in on that regularly. We will be, I don't know if you've got any seniors ready to be looking for some employment opportunities. We will be doing interviews for next year. We do what we call pool interviews. And so folks who have applied for positions, we will do Zoom meetings because we're doing those virtually. Just kind of run through some questions, and there's a whole protocol that goes with the pool interviewing. And then that team will make a recommendation. Is this somebody that we want principals to consider when they have an opening? So if that's something that you're interested in doing, please check out our career link on Bartlett City Schools homepage and complete that application and get yourself in a position to be interviewed for a pool interview. So really, I think, unless you've got any questions for me, I think that's probably what I would say.
Yes, I do have a couple questions for
Okay.
you. So as far as everything going virtual, how does that look now for you guys?
Well, we have our elementary schools are largely in person. Our middle schools, we have hybrid all the way through. So our elementaries are 5 days a week. And our middle schools are 5 days a week in person. And then there's the virtual option for those students whose parents prefer that virtual option. Our high schools, both high schools, are 2 days in, 3 days, 2 days in person, 3 days virtual. So the kids whose alpha is A through L, I believe it is, it may be A through M, they do virtual Monday, Wednesdays, and the remaining group N through Z is doing virtual Tuesday, Thursday, and everybody's virtual on Friday. So we're doing that, and that really has just really been about the numbers that we have and the space that complies with the CDC regulations. So that's where we are moving forward. Again, much of that will depend on, CDC's recommendations for us in terms of space. We are in the process of building a new high school and adding some things along those lines, but we will be CDC compliant. So, our hope obviously is in person all day for everybody, but we totally recognize that the hybrid piece is something that will probably be with us for a while. It works for some kids. It just works. So, we'll, again, with CDC compliance and, what our population demands will be factors related to what next year looks like. But we're always going to need staff.
Okay. Another question that I have is, does Bartlett allow summer interns? So is that an option?
Actually, we do not do summer interns because our staff is not required to work in the summers. Okay. So yes, summer internships are usually not something that we have been able to manage.
Okay. Another question is, how would scheduling work for those who have full-time positions and jobs outside of this?
Well, our schools are open. High schools are 7 to 2. Our middle schools run 7 to 2, 8 to 3, and we do have a 9 to 4. So whatever hours a student, some of the hours that students need. Now, I know in talking to Dr. Cogdill, she wants those full internships on site 37 and a half hours a week. So that would be during our school hours. That is not, you're not going to get supervision beyond the school hours. So for those that are practicum students and need less hours, that's something that can be worked out with the site supervisor.
And the last question I do have for you is, what would you say would be your best advice for somebody who's in the process of graduating? Like, this is their last semester, if you can give them any advice.
I think the main advice I would say is get that application in all around. For one, make sure your paperwork is in, make sure it's thorough in whatever system you're applying to. I would say also when it comes to that interview piece, be prepared to speak to a well-rounded counseling program. Where are you in terms of whole child and the academics, in the behavior pieces? What is your passion in terms of the kind of work you like to do? I will say for our school counselors, they're working all the competencies in the school counseling program. They may have their favorites, but they, our competencies cover the academic, the behavior, the personal, social. And so really being able to speak to how you would implement any of those competencies, any of those domains, I think is going to be important. Because though we do have our favorites and our pet kind of things, when you get into a school, you're going to have to really perform on all of those in all of those domains.
Well, that was all of my questions. Like I said, this was recorded, so the students will be able to contact you if they have any further questions.
Please, you've got my contact information. I would happily answer any questions that they have.
Thank you so much again.